Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mr. Quinn will be absent, or abstain, rather. Okay, next item on the agenda, see if we've got any communications from the city. Mr. Caldwell?
Yes, items 3 and 6 on your agenda have been withdrawn by the applicant. Item 7 is going to be postponed until next month.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell.
Welcome.
Anything else that you want to address? Anything else?
No, sir.
Great, thank you. Ms. Smith, if we can have everybody rise and get you sworn in. If you think you're going to make any comments into the meeting, please stand up and rise and get sworn in so we won't have to change it up and add you down the line.
Do you solemnly state, under penalty of perjury, that the evidence you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may sit down.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move to the first item on the agenda. We got item number 1. We have variance 29-24, an application by Ann Walters for a variance of the side yard setback requirements for a cargo lift at 338 46th Avenue North, Zone Single Family, Low Density in the R1 District. Ms. Walters, are you here? Nope, not here. Anyone here to speak on this? Oh, great, thank you. Mr. Norrie, what would suggest, this is the second time?
As the board is aware, this is the second time?
Yes.
What did we say last time when we made the motion to continue it?
We postponed it.
Did we say anything about whether she showed up or not? We just said,
No, we just postponed it.
I had a family member contact me on her behalf and asked that we postpone it till next month's meeting.
Okay.
I have not heard back from that family member, so I don't know what we want to do as a.
Well, it's up to the board. If there was a request by a family member to postpone this to the next meeting to allow the applicant to be present, the board could do that. Typically, the board's practice has been that you'll continue at one time to allow the applicant to be present, and if they're not present at the next meeting, then the practice has been to vote to remove it from the agenda. But if someone has contacted you and they're requesting that it be continued one more time, the board certainly could do that if it chooses.
Yeah, they've not done that for this time. This was the previous time.
Staff's input is that we'd like it to remain on the agenda because it is a variance to fix something that was built without a permit that could alleviate the situation.
Okay, good deal. Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. Well, if we get a motion to postpone.
I'll make a motion to postpone variance V 29-24
Great, thank you, Mr. Thomas.
the next regularly scheduled meeting?
to the next regular scheduled meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Good, thank you, Mr. Reeves. We got a second out of Mr. Reeves. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
I would ask that the city continue to post the property, please. Thank you.
Great. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda. We've got item number 2. We got variance V 32-24. We have an application by Mitch Sells for a variance of a side yard setback for the placement of a generator at 2609 South Ocean Boulevard, zoned resort residential in the R4 district. Mr. Sells?
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself on this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Good evening. Guys, do y'all have that top-down thing? Good evening, guys. Mitch Sells with Crescent Towers HOA. I know we've talked about a lot of different items over the past year. I've learned a lot about zoning. Mr. McCabe, our attorney, cannot be here tonight due to a son's championship game. So tonight that we asked for a variance to move the generator we've been discussing for the past year to an alternate location. In our last meeting that we had, the zoning board proposed the openness, I guess, to move the generator to the other side of the property, that variance might be something y'all are more open to approve. Location A was proposed, I think, by the zoning board, right at the corner at the front of the property beside the building. My board actually met, talked about different locations. We looked at the property. We do have enough parking spaces, but we looked at trying to preserve as many parking spaces as we have, and we came up with location B. And that location is basically a void spot where, due to the 2 parking spots, it's a pretty big area. Those measurements are 16 feet by 9 feet in that space. The generator is 9 feet by 40 inches. And so what we would propose is taking the generator from the current location, which is on this side of the building, and moving it over to that parking lot at the back behind our pool where location B is located at. We would move that over there to move away from our neighbors to the north. And if you look at that property from a more aerial view, different kind of views of the beaches out here at the front. You have a parking lot that's public access right here. So if we moved it to that location, you're really kind of the furthest space around anybody in that location. That space, if you look at this close-up view, well, sorry about that. This way. You look at that location, it would butt up to a property line with a wall that's already existing there and a wall behind it that borders the pool. So there's no traffic that could get past that area in the same place. So there's no, like, it wouldn't block anybody from getting beside that property. We've talked about the generator for now about a year. Our board felt like that the parking spaces have value that we really don't want to lose. It will cost us money to move that location, but we think it'll make all parties happy with that location. But that's kind of the location we would propose, and I'm happy for any questions you have.
Any questions, Mr. Sells?
On the moment.
Nope, I think we'll hear from the city, and we'll be back to you.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Petitioner Mitch Sells has submitted an application for a variance to use the required side yard setback for placement of mechanical equipment, a generator, in the Resort Residential R4 District at 2609 South Ocean Boulevard. Section 23105 allows certain things to encroach into required setbacks. Non-portable electric generators are, for 1- and 2-family dwellings, allowed to encroach into the side yard. Electric generators are not permitted to encroach into the required side yard setbacks for multifamily condominium projects. Mr. Sells has requested a variance to relocate the generator to the south side of the property in one of 2 possible locations within the required side yard, opting for option B. Included in the submittal items are photos depicting the proposed locations for the generator. Staff recommends that the board review the variance application and attach pictures and review section 23105 and section 2322.
Great, thank you, Mr. Caldwell.
Welcome.
Any questions for the city?
Is that considered a parking place?
It's
Location
void,
B.
like he said. The way the parking lot is configured, it couldn't be a parking space because there's the 2 right beside it that back straight out.
Why exactly they need a variance then if they want to put it there?
Side yard setback.
Okay.
And the city doesn't have an issue with it being next to the fence? You guys are okay with that?
No, sir, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Great, make a good question. Any other questions?
No, but I would like to just add something to the record so that I think it should be noted for the minutes and for the purpose of the record, that in making our decision today, we are taking into consideration all prior evidence and prior testimony that we've heard in prior hearings.
Over
And
the year.
we are considering that over the past year, and that even though it's not being repeated today in today's hearing, we have heard multiple versions and multiple discussions with these applicants, and that we're taking all of that into consideration when we make our decision.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms.
I'd
Quinn?
like to make a point to, and I know how frustrating it is to be a member of a board of an HOA, okay? Very hard, okay? However, I did take exception, Mr. Sells, with the fact that the generator, let me put it this way, it appears from the opening paragraph to the letter that you address us with, that it was the city's fault that this all happened, okay? But the original generator's application was to place the generator, if I'm correct, up on the roof. Somebody on your board, maybe the former president, I don't have that former president's name, had to make a decision, an option to agree with the contractor to move that generator to the street level. Then that person who's on the board, of course, is an HOA president, and that president is responsible for any contract negotiations that he makes, even when the board isn't present. But the other thing was that no one came back to the city and asked for an altered building permit, okay? In other words, it was moved from the roof down to the street, but no one came back to the city and notified the city that we were gonna alter the original permit. And as far as I know from going through some municipal regulations, when you're gonna change a building permit, you always go back to the original authorization, get it changed. The last thing that I did as I was going through this was that I just felt that once the job was done, it was up to the HOA and the contractor to contact the board and say, hey, guys, we've finished the job. We want you to come in and do the final inspection. Now, had that all been done in a timely fashion, we probably wouldn't be here now. But I'm not trying to change where we are now, but I'm simply saying I thought it was a little bit harsh to lay this whole thing on the city. Okay, I think it's the lack of oversight by the city has created a financial burden, okay? I think if you look at all the prior information that we have to conclude the city's been pretty cooperative on this. I haven't been able, as far as I can see that they have been, I looked it all over, but I just want to thank you for that and tell you that, okay?
Thank you, Ms. Quinn. Any other questions for the city or any comments? Great, thanks. We'll take a minute to hear from the public. If you want to come on up. And if you'll introduce yourself, please, for the record.
Pardon?
If you'll introduce yourself.
Oh, my name's Bob Puel. I'm a resident of Seascape next door. Kind of the first initial issue on this. The HOA sent me here. We saw the plans for A and B, and we were in support of Plan A. On the other side of the building, which Mr. Bell showed us on the screen. And so if it was the Plan A, we are in support of that.
Okay, thank you for your input. Anybody else? Come on up and introduce yourself. Thank you.
My name is Beth Pigeon. I'm an owner at Crescent Towers.
Okay.
I appreciated Mr. Quinn's input. We are a new board. We are a new president. I'm on the board as well. So to fault us or to accuse us of things that we did not do, we're out of our hands what was done prior. We know as a new board, we were giving a permit to put that generator where it is at. The city gave us a permit. We can only go by what the city did, giving us a permit. We now find ourselves only here because of our neighbors. They have come in every time we have been here, for all of you I know that have been with us while we were here, with a lot of accusations, unsubstantiated. We came in with facts. We've hired professionals to present the evidence negating what they have come before you and said. We have now spent thousands and thousands of dollars to try to mitigate this issue. I don't see where the problem is with us keeping it where it was, since we do have the permit, and really none of the things that they came up in front of you and accused it has ever come to be, from dogs being sick, and you all know what was presented. Again, all very unsubstantiated, just because they don't like it there. Well, condo living, there's a lot of things you have to put up with because it's condo living. We go into that knowing when we buy our property. I, for one, feel that we have been mistreated, to be honest, as an owner, not as a board member, for having to spend our money, our owner's money, to defend something that we really shouldn't even be here having to defend. Whatever the board decides, I just wanted to put it in writing that as an owner, I disagree with why we're even here. And then we'll see how it goes, where we can move it. If we're being forced to move it, I'm not sure why Seascape has any part in that decision, where we put it, where it's best for us. We are under for parking. Although it says we are, it's a very crowded place. We've gone through the history of our parking with that. So for someone from Seascape to come up and have any input, whether it's Plan A or Plan B, should have no impact on your decision. Thank you.
Great, thank you. You know, and I want to chime in a little bit on that. You know, it was put there, like as you said, it was put there before you all were there, before all we were probably on this board. But we looked at, we were trying to find a solution that made everyone happy, because we weren't sure how that vote would go on the variance. So we think we came up with a good option. We're sorry it cost you money on that situation, but we felt like we've got I'm talking for us, I feel like we found a solution that everybody can work with, because otherwise we would have said no, that we would have been where we're at. So, any other questions for this board?
I guess I have one question for this. I do want to circle back to the city. So, Mr. Caldwell, would we have to have a variance whether it's an A or B no matter what, right? We have to have a variance whether it's an A or B no matter what, right?
Right.
Okay. So I just want to verify that. That's all.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it's placed in A or B, they still need the variance.
They're in the variance.
They need the variance, okay. Gotcha.
Are we voting on, are we specifying?
Yeah, do we
Is our
designate?
motion to specify A or B?
You can condition an approval.
I would think, I mean, if we're just discussing, I would think if we're going to approve, I would do location B, because if they're strapped for parking, it does give them better, it gives them one more, it saves a parking space.
I mean, I don't have any, I'm with you.
I agree with that.
I'm fine, so.
Okay. Any other questions, or anybody prepared to make a motion to move forward?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Make sure you stipulate a hardship. in the-
Absolutely, you got it. I move that the board grant variance V 32-24 because the applicant has demonstrated a necessary hardship given the specifications and dimensions of our lot. It is unusually small and standard given the development that's on that piece of property. There are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, which we just stated. These conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. Because of these conditions, application of the ordinance of the particular piece of property would affect or prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property for safety purposes. The authorization of the variance would not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent properties or to the public good, and the character of the district would not be harmed by granting of the variance. This variance will be approved on the condition that it is based on specification application B, and it is allowed for the required variance setbacks that are requested for the generator placement.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Any discussions? Nope. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Great. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 4 on the agenda. We got a variance number 34-24, an application by Douglas Jolly for a variance of a rear and side yard setback for a proposed propane tank at 609 21st Avenue North, zone single family, low density residential in the R1 district. Mr. Jolly?
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. If you could introduce yourself, please.
All right, my name's Douglas Jolly. I live at 609 21st Avenue North, and we're here to hopefully see if you can help us out.
Okay.
Just to give you a little bit of quick background, we've owned that house for 20 years, and we bought it for the fact that we would retire here. Well, this spring we did. We retired here, and we moved in August. And my first intention was to build and put us a home generator to protect ourselves when power was off, because this, you know, this is a storm-prone area. So when we contracted a contractor to install our generator, it's called APCO Electric. We started the process, and then he told me I needed to get a propane contractor because Dominion Energy does not supply natural gas in this area, in our street. It's just up the street, but they won't bring it to us. So that was the only alternative, was to bring in propane. Well, I hired a a propane company, and that person did not know the rules or the zoning. I didn't know the zoning rules. And I built 2 pads hoping that that was going to be sufficient, and found out that there is nowhere on our property that does not put the tanks in out of the setback. We have 5 foot on each side and 20 foot in the back. And all that is in the setbacks. And they built that house based on that setback. So I have a generator that I want to put in, but I can't power it because I can't put the tanks there. And that's the gist of it. And I can go through each detail. I don't know, I guess y'all have the same information I have. But I came up here to the city. I had to learn that. I was educated about the zoning because I didn't know it. And we've learned a good bit, but the propane contractor didn't have any idea. And the electrical, of course, he didn't know the propane rules or the setback rules. So we right now have a generator sitting on a pad, can't do anything. He can't get a permit because we found out that the propane, we can't use the tanks. So we're stuck. We need to see if y'all can give us a variance.
Who was your propane contractor?
I hired a guy out of Nichols, our company out of Nichols called Battle, because the generator guy said they were real nice people and it was a family-owned company, and I just didn't have a clue that that would be an issue. So they did everything I asked them to do, except they didn't know the setback rules, and I didn't either. So we have no place that won't be in the setback to put our tanks. So we're requesting a place. I have a sketch of where I'd like to put them. We actually had them there. I built some pads thinking that he knew what he was talking about, but unfortunately they were, he was wrong. But I have a sketch. I don't know if y'all have that sketch.
We do.
Of where I'd like to put it.
I believe I do.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I didn't know y'all had this little trick. All right, this is the front of the house, right? On this front, you can see the front. The generator pad is right here on the corner near the front of the house. And back here is 10 foot away from a HVAC unit. It's 10 foot away on the property line. There's a fence, existing fence on that property line. So I built a pad there thinking that would be a good place. I plan on putting a fence screen around it to hide it, which you can't hardly see it, but I'm sure the neighbor can, but he doesn't seem to have a problem with it. But that's where I'm at today. I got a house that I can't do a generator. And me and my wife do both. By doctor's request, we have CPAP machines that we'd like to have power if it goes out for several days. It's going to take 2 tanks to run it for about 5 days, from what they tell me. So We'd like to see if y'all let us put our tanks right there so we can have power when the power goes out. That's all I got to say.
Any questions for Mr. Jolly?
How many square feet is your lot?
The square foot of the lot,
Yes, sir.
I have a plat, but I don't have, the size of the lot, but I don't know that I have the actual square footage of the property.
It's right around 3,500 square feet. You have it in your plot plan here.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
like 50.4 by 70, and then you got cut off, so it averages out to about 3,500
Yeah,
square
we
feet.
have 20 foot in the backyard and 5 foot on both sides.
And your
Front
width.
yard is all
yeah.
concrete.
And your width is only 80 feet, right? 50 feet on that
Yeah.
lot, so it's only 50 feet
Yeah.
wide? Okay.
Can I speak? I'm Robin Jolly.
This is my wife.
One other thing he failed to mention is one of the reasons we were so confused about this is because there are propane tanks against, there's like, I think, sent in 5 pictures on the same street that all have propane tanks up against their house. They're like within a foot of the house. So that's what confused us. We didn't understand why we couldn't do it.
Right.
But everybody else on the street can do it.
Understand.
So-
I was going
Okay.
down that road.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So-
I'm going to sit down now.
No, you're fine. So our, yeah.
The comments first.
So you would say that, in particular, your hardship would probably be the smaller size of your lot in the area that it's located?
Well, my hardship is that any area left on our property is considered as a setback zone.
So you have a small lot, right?
Yeah, it's fairly small, yeah, 6 foot on, 5 foot on each side and 20
Okay.
foot in the back, and the front's concrete.
Okay.
So I just don't have a place to put them that won't be against the zoning rule.
How many square feet is it?
It's only 30, so it's technically an R1. It's single-family dwelling. The new zoning, it requires 10,000, the lot has to be 10,000 square feet. He only has a 3,500 square foot lot for R1.
Okay.
And it's, the minimum actual width of the lot has to be 80 feet. His lot is only 50 feet wide.
And what's the depth?
The depth is 70 feet on 70 foot on one side and 65 on the other.
Which lot are you looking at?
I thought it was 50 by 100.
Yeah, I'm looking
You look
at
at 50
50 by 100. is
You look
what
at
I'm
50
looking
by
at,
100?
Which is still underneath.
Well, it's
the-
still a smaller lot.
Yeah.
It just looks like the one that's got the.
That looks like 50 by 100, doesn't it?
It says right here 50.4, 70.8, 65.8, 50 on the back.
The house was obviously built to the max of the setback zones, whatever the setbacks were 20 years ago. And there's nothing left but zoning setbacks, 20 in the back and 5 on both sides.
We're looking at, just so you understand, us doing it with the, looking for a variance, it's got to be tied to a hardship on the property. That's why Mr. Bell's talking about the size of the property. If you give us a second, we're going to hear from the city. We're going to have some more questions for you.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from the city and talk about that, and then we can see how we go with this. Thank you, sir. Mr. Caldwell?
Petitioner Douglas Jolly has submitted an application for a variance to use the required rear and side yard setback for placement of propane tanks in the single-family, low-density residential R1 district at 609 21st Avenue North. Section 23105 allows certain things to encroach into required setbacks. Non-portable electric generators are, for 1 and 2 family dwellings, allowed to encroach into their side yard. Propane tanks are not listed as something that may encroach into a required yard. As per the attached drawing in the submittal package are proposed locations for the tanks. Staff recommends that the board review the variance application and attached pictures and review section 23105 and section 2318.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell.
Welcome.
Mr. Caldwell, talking about the size of Mr. Bell was asking about talking about the size of the lot. Becomes a challenge of where we're putting, where they've,
Right.
and with the undersized lot. Any thoughts from the city's perspective on how to help him create a solution to this?
We have a list of things that we're going to consider ordinance changes, and one of them may be to allow propane tanks in a side or rear yard with a decreased setback from what the house would require.
Yeah, then, and that might even be a good comment, because we have the zoning. What happened is that we've had modification in zonings, and they've been good changes, but sometimes we've got properties that are undersized pieces of property, such as yours, that has a setback requirements that actually restrict you from utilizing your property. And the city's addressing it, but we got to find a hardship today to give you a solution, if we can today.
So it could be at a later date? Is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
no, we're good. That's why, we're just wanted to address, hear the city on, about it, so.
And I would, negative Nellie here, I would like to say that his application raises a couple of issues that I keep finding troubling as we're going through these, which is, number one, that the structure where, I know that the zoning department over the years has taken upon themselves to say, this falls under this description. A propane tank, in my mind, is not a structure, and y'all are deciding it's a structure. I think he makes a very good point. It's really easy for city council to put in the word propane tank into the code, and then you're not making an interpretation. The way it is written at this point in time, you all are having to interpret it, and then it comes in front of us, and city council should be, I'm verbalizing this so maybe somebody in upper management will hear this, is that, and we run into this a lot, where you all have to decide, you're the zoning people, and you've got to make an interpretation of the code of what should be a very clear word. What is a structure? You know, they're saying a tank is a structure. I don't see a tank as a structure. And the other part that I have repeatedly mentioned is the fact that the wife brought up, is that our system is complaint-driven. And that's why other people have tanks, because nobody's complained. If somebody complained about them, if you all want to complain because your neighbors have tanks, then the city would take it up, and those people would have to come in here and go through the same process that you're going through. But we see this all the time with accessory buildings, garages, sheds, trailers in the driveways. If nobody complains, nothing gets done, because our system's complaint-driven. So, again, that is another problem that I see with the enforcement of our zoning laws, and I would like it to be brought to city council if they ever read these minutes, that they would become aware, note all of this. Because it's frustrating that we hear the same things over and over again from meeting to meeting. And that is, I've now said my piece.
All right, thanks, Ms. Lover. But, Mr. Caldwell, I do like the fact that we are, because there is some things that we need to address and maybe to update. And I think that you all going to work on that will be great as far as trying to update it. Mr. Farmer?
Yes, sir. The applicant has made numerous attempts to try to come into compliance. However, he even thought of the idea of burying the gas tank, but then the conflicting ordinances between the zoning department and the building department caused us to be where we're at today, because for zoning, if it was a buried gas tank, there would be no zoning setbacks. However, if it is a buried gas tank for the building department, it's a 10-foot setback requirement for each property line.
Okay.
So that would then again cause a problem. So that's why the applicant is here today. There was no solution that we as staff could come up with without a possible variance.
And I understand that. It puts you all in a tough situation.
Yes.
So you said if it's buried, it has to be 10 feet off the...
Per building department's code, it has to be 10 foot from each property line if it's buried. With zoning, there's no setback requirement for it.
The
But if
backyard,
it's above ground, anything above a foot is a structure, has to meet setback, excluding fences. So if you had a deck that was 24 inches, it's got to meet the same setback as your house.
so Mr. Jolly, there's nowhere in your yard where you could do that, bury it within that 10-foot setback?
I can't find one, and we've called to ask somebody to come help us to look
Yeah.
and make this decision, and nobody returned our call or came.
Yeah, because I think that's a good option. I actually have my
couldn't
fuel
with-
tank,
He
my gas
couldn't
tank
without
buried.
tearing up his driveway.
Oh, okay.
That's there.
Well, it is also hard to get a piece of equipment back there, and plus it's probably gonna cost me twice as much money. Of course,
Understand.
I know that's not important to y'all, but
No, it is.
it is to me. I mean, I'm
It is.
already paying a lot to get a generator.
Right.
And I'd really like to put the above ground and just hide them. That's what I'd like to do.
To Mr. Bell's point, with the undersized lot, there is an option there to discuss about that. But I love, to go back about this, the zoning, all the things that come in front of us. I love for us, if we had a chance to talk to you all, you all figure out how we draft these things that we see all the time, just to make sure we don't forget them, because we all know the things that we want to modify that make more sense for our community, and the different size lots and the different variances, different zonings that are there. So, Good.
I just want to correct myself. I was looking at the dimensions of the lot in front of it.
Yeah.
But he actually has a 5,000 square foot lot. But it's still undersized.
Yeah, it's still half the
only
size
50 feet
of-
wide, but I just want to be on
Yeah.
record correcting myself, that's all. Yeah.
Mr. Bell, is anyone prepared to make a motion on this with the undersized lot?
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just have one more question, though. If we were to grant the variance and he puts it back there in that corner where he has the pads already poured,
I'm sorry, I'd like to put it where the pad's already poured, but I can move it if I have to.
Okay,
But
my
that
question-
just seems to be the most logical place.
my question was just going to be for the city. Does that pose any safety risk for any neighbors if we were to grant his variance request to allow him to put it on that pad? Is that close to any neighboring structure, or does that would that develop any kind of risk?
Can I make a comment? That pad is almost exactly in the farthest place from each 4 houses in that area. It's the farthest place, so that's got to be the safest place if you're gonna put one up above
Okay.
ground.
Great.
And we're talking about proposed, what you've got on your drawing is proposed, the first proposed, correct? The first proposed location, because you got a second one over there. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
the second
Yep.
one is right next to my house, and it's right next to my steps, which I can put there if that's okay, but that's closer to my house and the neighbor to the, if you're facing the house to the right.
Mr. Jolly, and Mr. Wise, before you, I'd like to hear from the city. Where's a spot that would make sense? Is there a spot that, he's got a pad poured, if it makes sense, we can work with it? If not, is there another spot that,
If you approve the first location, it's going to be right on against the side property line.
okay?
If it's at the second location, it's going to be against the house of the rear of the home, not the side. So
And Mr. Jolly stated that the pad is the farthest away from all neighbors that it can be.
So you think the pad, which pad are we talking about? We talking the pad by the stairs or the pad by the side back?
Not by the stairs.
This one right here.
this is one.
This
that's
one over here?
Yeah, that was 10 foot
The
away.
property
There's a
line.
house over here. It's all the farthest point away from all 4 houses in that quadrant.
So if the city's, as we're looking at this, so where does it make sense for us to direct them? I'm good with that pad if we feel like that's the best spot that we would,
That would probably be the least expensive route for you to run the gas line, correct?
Well,
To the
actually,
generator?
we already got that far. That's when we realized we couldn't do it. And I had to get the tanks removed.
Okay.
I mean, the gas line's there, the pad's there, and I was gonna move it, but I said, well, if I can get it put there, that's where I wanna put it. But if I can't, I'll have to do something else, but that's why I'm here.
Mr. Colwell, Mr. Farmer? Does that area work? If we're going to grant a variance, because the lot is an undersized lot and we're struggling with the spot to put the,
It wouldn't be a building violation because it's not buried. It'd only be a zoning violation, but if the variance is granted, then
okay? Yeah.
Everybody ready? Yep. Well, this is painful for me to say for a Clemson fan, but here we go.
I knew that might come up. I started to change my shirt, but
You got 2 Gamecocks on this panel,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's bad. That's bad right there, Mr. Jolly. Next time you
Room at any time.
I would go ahead and move that the board grant variance V3424 because the applicant has demonstrated an unnecessary hardship. Specifically, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, being that it is undersized up to today's standards, so it's a lot smaller lot than normal. These conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. Because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The authorization of the variance would not be substantial detriment to adjacent properties or to the public good, and the character of the district would not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I would just also like to add for the record that Mr. Jolly put it where it was proposed, the first one, that you wanted to have it on the 10-foot, not the other one behind it there.
thank you.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. Just want to say that these conditions the undersized lot does apply to the other lots in the area, so I just want to verify that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Any other discussions?
I was just wondering, are there any other people that were going to speak to this issue out
thank
here
you.
tonight?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Any more discussions? We've got a second after Mr. Bell. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Let's have it. Great, thank you. Okay, we've got item number 5, variance 35-24, an application by Jane Dodge for a variance to remove 2 trees exceeding 24 caliper inches at 875 Westport Drive. Ms. Dodge, or somebody here to speak on this? All right, Mr. Dodge, or Mr., no, come on up, introduce yourself.
So I'm not Jane, I'm Bob Weaver,
How you doing?
Weaver Engineering. I'm representing Lennar Homes,
Okay.
the owner. This request is to remove 2 trees, 26-inch tree on lot 16. I believe you have a plan that shows the location. Also, a 40-inch elm tree on lot 29. We have a letter from an arborist, Graham McElveen. I think many of you probably know him, but do you have a copy of his letter, or do I need to read it?
You have a copy.
States on lot 16 to 26-inch oak would have long-term, the results of construction process would adversely affect this tree. We're having to build the streets, put in all the utilities, and we tried to move the lots around. This tree has a canopy of over 100 and some feet. They're big compared to the size houses we're putting in here. So just say it like it is. We have a very small piece of land, 8 acres. It's behind Starbucks. I think you know where it's at, but I can go through each one of these reasons that I filled out if that's what I need to do. There's like eight questions. The property is restricted because of things you don't normally see in other spots of land here in the city, such as the power lines. We have distribution lines and transmission lines we had to work through. And under these lines are several utilities that the city owns and maintains. But the biggest issue was the major pump station located on this site next to Westport Drive. This station was installed in 1973. In fact, the company I used to work for designed this station years ago for the city, back in the 70s. So we had to reach an agreement with the city to, in a development agreement, to have landscaping installed around this pump station. So that's in the agreement. And I know I'm jumping around here on these reasons, but there's a lot of restrictions on this property. There's also a DOT drainage outfall at the rear of this property that serves a lot of the city. We have agreed to, my client has agreed to deed the city 0.51 acres for the pump station site. Before this property started, they did not own the land, and this station was existing. So that's created a hardship as far as being able to use all the property. We have setbacks around the pump station we created to help the city. And then item number 3, the way our land plans were approved, we have the houses shown on the drawing, and that's what was approved as far as the planning commission early on. We did not request permission to cut these trees as far as the planning commission review. And item number 4, we have a sidewalk system that we're installing here with the city as far as a public benefit. And this will be also connected to Westport Drive, the sidewalk system on Westport. And when you put these sidewalks around these trees, you know what kind of problems you have later on. So, in the last item, the landscaping and street trees, we have a street tree plan that was presented to the city before we had our plans approved. And city staff has a copy of that. I did not provide it, but I think you have trees about every 50 feet. These lots are only 45 feet wide. They're small, but we have a lot of trees we're planning to put here. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weaver. Any questions?
I have questions. So the description, the front page that we're considering says that you're asking for, looks like a variance for a 26-inch water oak and a 40-inch elm. The letter from the arborist lists 4 trees, 3 of which are at least 24 inches. So my reading in this letter is the lot 25, it has a 24-inch elm, which is in poor health and should be removed, says the arborist. Are you asking for a variance for that tree because it's not on our?
I would let, Ben and I had discussed that before we applied, because the arborist recommended removing those trees because they're dying or almost dead. So I did not ask for a variance on those because of the letter.
When you say those, which one are you saying those? When you say
Lot
those.
25,
Okay,
39.
okay, that's 20 inches, so that doesn't come in front of us anyhow.
Right.
Okay. The problem I have with the 26-inch water oak is that it looks like the damage to it was caused by the construction. I went out there and looked at it. You've dug all around the roots. You're cutting through it to put up water lines. It doesn't even look like you tried to protect it in the construction process. So I see that as a problem because that is really self-imposed. You could have protected that tree and maybe had less lots. Just because y'all wanted a bunch of lots is not an issue. The tree should have been protected.
I understand your comment.
And also, I mean, I don't know if you were involved when they purchased the land or not, but Lennar should have been aware that there was a pump station there when they purchased it, and they should have been aware that there were power lines across it when they purchased it, and yet they made a decision to purchase it anyhow. So that was a decision they took into consideration when they bought the land, and I don't think you should be able to use it as a mitigating factor in why you should be able to cut all these trees, and woe is Lennar because now they can't build what they want to build on the property when they were aware of all these problems when they bought it. And I'm sure they factored in at the price and somehow. So I don't know if you ever get involved when they're purchasing the property in the beginning, or you just come in the back end, but I would suggest if that happens next time when they consult with you, that perhaps you might suggest that somebody on the zoning board really likes trees and really wants to see them protected, and they might want to consider that in making their future purchase decisions.
I understand what you're saying. I was not involved in reaching the development agreement between the city and the developers. I was not party to that. So
Okay.
I can't answer all those questions that you asked about that particular issue.
Okay.
Because it was behind closed doors, and
Okay.
I was not involved, okay?
Just, so, the 40-inch elm is in good health, and the arborist says he's concerned about the curb being cut 3 inches from the tree, but he thinks it has good odds of survival. I think you've already destroyed that 26-inch tree. And I understand that the elm, I don't know why the elm's in poor health, if it was just old or if that was caused by construction or not, so I don't know about that. So those are my concerns, is that I would like to see you keep the 40-inch tree, and we would give you a variance on the 26-inch tree. And my other question is, what other trees are on this property that you're keeping? How many inches of trees are on the property that were already there are you keeping?
There's a lot of wetlands on this site, so we have a lot of trees. There's like 2.5 acres of wetlands that still have trees.
Did you do a survey, a tree survey?
Oh, yeah, that was presented to the city up front.
Correct. Okay, so, but you don't have, you're not privy to those figures, how many inches of trees you're keeping?
No, there's about 5 trees here, but, and then there's some more in the wetlands. I don't know how many.
Okay. But you're not going to cut anything else that's in those wetlands?
We're not cutting anything else unless we have permission to cut it.
Anything that's not, even though it's not being developed because it's wetlands, you're going to leave all those trees?
We have to buffer the wetlands. That was another thing I did not mention. The city has a 20-foot buffer now. We can't bother the wetlands.
Okay.
We have to buffer it for, all wetlands now in the city would be required to have a buffer of 20 feet.
Okay,
We did the same thing at Sea Chase. We've done it on every project.
okay. So and then when you went to the planning commission on this, you didn't mention the trees to them? But this wasn't part of the planning commission, is that what you said?
It was not.
Did the planning
We did
commission?
not ask
I think
permission.
the planning commission wanted them to save these trees, is that correct, Mr. Caldwell?
The 40-inch tree was mentioned to try to save that. We moved the street over to miss that 40-inch tree and eliminated the sidewalk to miss the 40-inch.
Okay, but you're still asking for a variance to cut it? That's why I'm confused.
I'm asking for a variance to cut it because it might have damage in the future.
Not if you protect it, and,
Well, we're trying to protect it.
okay. All right, that's all I have at the moment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lover. Mr. Weaver, give a second. Oh, any other questions for Mr. Weaver? Give a second, we're going to hear from the city.
Petitioner Jane Dodge has submitted an application to remove 2 trees in excess of 24 caliper inches at Southwind Cove, zone mid-rise multifamily residential R2A district. Southwind Cove is a proposed single-family development behind Starbucks and the North Beach Plaza Shopping Center across Westport Drive from Parkway Drive. The request includes proposal for removal of a 26-inch water oak and a 40-inch elm. A letter detailing recommendations from arborist Graham McElveen is included in the submittal package. Trees exceeding 24 caliper inches shall only be removed upon approval by the board. The board is charged with setting a suitable tree replacement schedule. City Council has also approved a tree bank where individuals can pay $100 per caliper inch of required planting. Staff recommends that the board review the variance application, hear the evidence presented at the meeting, and review Section 2368.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell.
You're welcome.
Any questions for the city?
So this is a PDD, right?
No, R2A.
Is R2A?
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
R2A, mid-rise multifamily residential.
Okay.
Mr. Farmer?
Now, I just want to specify for the record, sidewalks are not a public benefit in this case. It's actually a city requirement, for the record.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, yes, sir. Come on up to the, come on up and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Rich Zigabara. I live on Westport Drive and been there for 20 years. And worried about these trees that were coming, they're wanting to take down. I was surprised that even that property was, they're going to put houses underneath power lines, and where our pump station is, it's just like, it's hard to get in and out of Westport Drive with Starbucks there and Walgreens now. I mean, like, I would just wish everybody would stop cutting stuff down. It would be awesome. So I just would like to know that these trees could be saved. And like, I really don't understand like why that property was tried to be developed and you're gonna put it under power lines, super high voltage power lines. Doesn't make sense. And in the traffic that these new homes that are gonna be in there, the traffic to get in and out, it's hard enough just trying to get out of Carolina Keys to get in and out and get across the street.
Here I've kind of tried to black in the area where the pump station and power lines are. There's not actually any houses underneath the power lines or in the pump station area.
It's close to it.
It is close, but you said under. I just want to show you that they're not under.
So you want to understand, we're not here to address whether or not they're putting houses here. We're to address the trees. This committee is about addressing the trees, so we do appreciate your
Right,
input.
like, I'm surprised that property was just
we don't really
left it alone.
Yeah, we don't have really anything to do.
Left it alone, you know.
because
And I feel your pain, and he's correct, though. We don't have any input on that. It's already been approved. So for concerned citizens like yourself, my suggestion in the future would be that the agendas for the Planning Commission and the City Council meetings are all posted online every month. If concerned citizens would read those agendas and go to the Planning Commission meetings and go to the City Council meetings and make their thoughts known before these are approved, you may get some input into stopping that, but this has been approved now. The trees have all been cut down except these 4 stragglers that are left. So, and your traffic concerns as well. All of that is stuff that should be brought to Planning Commission and City Council by concerned citizens. But if you don't show up at the meetings and you don't make your voice heard, nothing happens.
it's just like I had to walk over for physical therapy. I broke this arm, and that's when I seen the sign there, and we called, and that's why me, my wife, and my neighbors are here, because, like, about the trees, and it's.
But the development was submitted a long time ago.
Gotcha.
And the time to stop it would have
Gotcha.
been, the
Wait.
time to complain would have been before it was approved. And all we can look at today is those trees that are left that are over 24 inches that are protected. So I feel your pain.
Thank you for your
All right,
input.
thank you for your time, everybody.
Could I speak on that? Yes, ma'am, come on up, and if you will, introduce yourself.
My name is Debbie Zigabara. I'm Mr. Zigabara's wife. I also live in Carolina Keys, and I do not want any more trees cut down. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. If those are protected trees, they should stay protected. There's been enough cut down, and if they did damage to a tree and have to cut it down as a result of what they caused by construction damage, they should be required to put a tree back that was just as wide a diameter as what they damaged.
Great, thank you. Any questions? No. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to make any comments? Great, thanks again. Mr. Weaver, do you have a second? Come on back up to. Question for you on the, so we're really looking at the one tree. Is it the one that's right here to the left, if I'm looking at the page? Center left?
You don't have a screen up here anymore, so. If you look at the lot numbers, which tree are you
Yeah,
asking
lot
about?
number 1516. That was the one tree that I noticed when I pulled up. Lot 1516.
Or
16
2930.
is down in a hole. We had to build those lots up because of the drainage in the ditch behind.
Okay.
15, 16,
Behind the
26
lots.
inch.
That's the one that's in the middle, that's got the trench dug around it.
Is that the 26 inch or the 40 inch?
Those pads had to be built up
That's the
because of
26
the
inch.
ditching and the drainage. There's a 60-inch pipe under Westport Drive.
40 inch,
Okay.
this one, the big one over here on the right-hand side.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Hear me?
Yeah.
It's a major outfall for the city and DOT.
So the tree that, Ms. Lover, on the tree that, that you were talking about, which tree is that, so I can understand which one that is?
The one that's got a ditch dug around, it's that one.
15 to 16?
There's a big one over here, that's, I think is the 40-inch one. I went and talked to the guys out there on the bulldozer.
But it says it's lot 15, 16?
I think 15,
Here, see where?
Yeah, it says lot 16 right there
Yeah,
beside
lot
it.
16.
That's the water oak, the 26-inch water oak.
that's the one over here.
Yeah.
That's the one they dug the ditch around. The 40-inch one is the one over here in the,
Lot 29.
back here in the corner.
Okay, in the back.
Yeah.
So the lot 20, yeah.
He's got it marked on the,
Okay, if you look at,
the arborist has it marked on his sheet.
The arborist even says there's a good chance the 40 inch will make it.
Right.
That's what that's what I wanted to have an understanding.
To me,
Mr. Weaver, which is the tree that could make it? And then what is the life of the tree? You know, what is the expected life? I know it's all pertaining. A slow dwindle, so what,
some of the trees on this site, they're dying in the top. tell it. And I'm not an arborist, okay? Just go by his letter, but there's a chance to survive, it might survive, but we moved the street over to miss this 40-inch tree as much as we could and still be able to build a house on the lot between this street and Carolina Keys.
Okay.
And not encroaching the power lines, so.
So this one, you feel like you can save this lot 2930?
That was the plan all along.
Good deal. So then we come back to lot 16, and that's the one that you,
That's the one.
that's the one you were talking about that was damaged with,
It's already damaged.
already
Yeah,
damaged.
The roots are already.
And that tree has, that whole area has about 3 or 4 feet of fill. If you look at that tree when you drove up, you can see the recessed area around the tree where fill dirt has to be put in for the pads.
Okay.
And this street too, it was a very low area, elevation-wise. We had to fill it.
Houses flood.
This side had almost 2 to 3 feet of fill.
Okay. And this is my, if we have a tree that you feel like is going to die, I'd rather put trees back on there, on the property. If not, I'm good leaving it, and then we just come back, it dies, and you sat here.
My feeling is that we should allow him to take the 26-inch tree out because it's going to die.
Yep.
But the 40-inch one has a good chance of living, and I would like to deny the variances to that. That would be the motion I would make.
That can work, that can work here.
And I'd like to make a motion with regards to variance, where are we? I'm sorry, let's find the number.
And Cynthia, if you would also.
Variance V 35-24. I would make a motion that we deny the variance as to the 40-inch, I believe it's an elm tree.
Lot 29.
On lot 29, that tree remain protected, and they put a sufficient construction zone around it to make sure, to do everything they can, that it continues to live. And I would make a motion that we grant the variance as to the 26-inch water hook with a provision that they damaged it during construction. They have to replace it with 26 inches of oak trees on the site, in addition to any other oaks that are, any other trees that are included in the already approved landscape plan, and that they not be allowed to cut down any other trees that are on the property. All remaining trees around the water, the transfer station, and the wetlands have to remain. And if they don't want to replant 26 inches of trees, they can pay, or 26 inches of oaks, they can pay $2,600 into the tree bank.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lever. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Quinn. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you.
Do you understand, Mr. Weaver? Sure.
Yes, sir.
Please. There's a lot of talk, so I know there's a lot of dollar bills and inches flying around.
All right, the motion will read, either plant 26 inches of oaks on the site, because we have 5 trees we had to pick on our street tree plan that we proposed, and that was approved, or pay $2,600 into the tree bank.
Yes.
Okay,
And protect that 40-inch tree,
well, that's all, we're already,
okay?
To do that.
And the other trees all have to stay. The ones around the wetlands, not the other ones that are on your letter, but,
well, the one beside the pump station is the city's tree. The one that
okay.
looks like an elbow going up in the air. If you saw it, it's, I don't know how it's still standing, but that's
Okay.
the city tree,
Okay,
okay?
so that's up to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Weber.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Who seconded that?
Roger Quinn.
Mr. Quinn, yep. All right, we'll move on to item number 8. We've got variance 38-24, an application by Jeffrey Kaiser for a variance of a minimum building setback requirements of the archaic superseded patio home regulations for a proposed home addition at 729 Sweetgum Lane, zone medium density residential in the R2 district. Mr. Kaiser? Hello.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Kaiser, and yeah, like you said, I'm asking for variance on behalf of the homeowner. So our proposed addition is on top of this existing pad that's right here. It's 10 foot by, I'm not sure this dimension here, but this dimension here is 10 foot. And talking with zoning, we were good to build here because of, we met the accumulation of 10-foot setback requirement from house to house. And we were, I was pulling the permit and Elton caught it that this right here, the rear of the existing house is encroaching as well. And there's somewhere in fine print in the zoning that you can only encroach on one side of the property. And this house is encroaching in 2 locations. So we're simply asking a variance, I guess, to waive this 2.5 square foot that it's encroaching here on the rear so that we can use the accumulation of 10 foot on the side to do our addition.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Give a second.
When did is this the original owner of the house, or did they buy this house? Was it?
I purchased it probably maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay, all right.
And so this neighborhood, all the not all the homes, but a lot of the homes have this raised patio. It's, I don't know, it's maybe 3-foot raised concrete patio, and they have added on to that same raised patio, multiple homes in this neighborhood. It just so happens that this house is kind of skewed on the lot.
Right.
In relation to all the other homes. And it being skewed is what puts that back corner over the rear setback.
Any other questions?
I guess my question is, you want to build an addition, and you're focusing on the old corner that's back there in the back, that's already over the line. So my question is, what's your hardship that you need the addition? I mean, the house is livable the way it is. It's there, they just want an addition?
Yeah, they want to add on to the home to, those slab homes are small. They have, I don't know, maybe 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they bought the home, driving through the neighborhood, seeing all the other additions done in the same manner, and so they bought it with the intention of retiring and being able to do that same addition. And we've had plans drawn up. We actually had plans drawn up to be within this side setback, but that made this like a 8-foot room, so it's not really a usable bedroom. And then talking with Ben, he was like, if that's 10 foot, you can use the accumulation rule. I'm not sure the exact terminology of that, but it's accumulation of 10 foot from house to house. And so we had the plans drawn up for a full 10 foot. That's exactly what, over top of the existing patio. And not until it went through zoning in the building permit process that Elton caught it back here of encroaching on the back as well. So when you're pulling a permit, you don't necessarily have to have a set survey. And so I was going to, but I'd already submitted this official survey in the permit process, so there was no wiggle room there. Also, I'm making a point that the neighborhood has a back fence going along the back of all of these homes, and that fence is 2 foot within his property line. So he's already kind of being cheated 2 foot of his back property line. So yeah, if we were to take this back corner of his house and cut it off and finish it, then we would probably be able to do the addition. But since that is going a matter of like 7 inches by 16 inches, that pie-shaped back corner, that's kind of ruling out the accumulation rule. It's allowing us to build on the right side.
Go ahead.
The minimum lot size for an R2 lot is it 5,000?
I can't speak to what the rule was when these lots were subdivided. Today's requirement is 3,000 square foot for 0 lot line, single-family detached lots.
Okay.
And Mr. Kaiser's talking about that accumulation. Those superseded patio home regulations allowed you to encroach into one of your required side yards if you made up the amount of side yard encroached into on the opposite side. So he's got that with this plan, but he already encroaches into 1 yard, so he can't encroach into 2. But he does have the total 10 foot of required setback on the sides.
So do we think this encroachment was the result of a bad survey and laying out the house initially?
Probably a bad layout when they first started building.
Okay, yeah.
Give us a second, we'll hear from the city, and then we'll be back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you leave that drawing up there? Thank you.
Petitioner Jeffrey Kaiser has submitted an application to reduce the minimum required building setback at 729 Sweet Gum Lane, zoned medium-density residential R2 district. The development requires 7.5-foot front and rear yard setbacks and 5-foot side yard setbacks. The superseded patio home regulations are grandfathered and still apply to these homes. The 0 lot line patio home regulations allowed for one of the setbacks to be encroached upon, as long as the setback was made up on the opposite yard setback, and as long as 10 foot remained between the home and any neighboring home. The existing home encroaches into the rear yard setback. The 1 yard with decreased setback already exists. The plan is to add an addition onto the side of the house, which would encroach into the required side yard. As previously stated, the 1 yard may be encroached upon, but not 2. The minimum 10-foot separation would be provided from the neighbor's home, and the 10-foot total side yard setback would be provided. Staff recommends that the board review the variance application, review attached photos, and hear the evidence presented at the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell.
You're welcome.
Looking at the proposed addition, and I'm not sure how the rule that you're talking about as far as where you all found the rear, sitting in there. But you could put an addition on there, it's just a little smaller. Is there any factor that if that back parcel could we add on to the front here, but maybe not give the full addition? With
Yes,
that
you could.
equation?
There's 20-some feet, I think it says, on the survey.
Okay.
And the required setback is 7.5.
Okay.
Or slightly larger because of the slight encroachment in the rear.
Right. So is there an equation that we could give them if we factor in the rear, where we can give them a little benefit on this, that would be within the zoning regulation without granting a variance?
They could add on in the front of the house. I don't know exactly how big of an addition because I can't read the number on the survey. Anybody see that distance right there? 20.9. So he has 20.9 in the front minus 7.5 minus the 16 or so inches in the rear.
Gotcha. Well, there's an option for them. Yeah, the house is just mispositioned on the property. That's what's causing the rear to be impacted and the side here. I don't know what anybody's thoughts are. We've got the ability to do an addition somewhere in between getting a credit for that.
Or you could do an 8-foot wide addition, but.
Correct. But look, you're looking at this property line, so I think we give this to the staff and let them figure it out, because you get some sort of credit for it, but then you're just losing a little bit off the back, correct? From the back? Am I understanding?
Can you say that again?
Was the rear, because there's encroaches on the rear? So you're not supposed to encroach on one side?
Yep.
So can that be deducted from what he could?
It would be, yes.
Okay, so
So if you,
Mr. Chairman, are you suggesting that the staff look at this?
I think the staff could solve this and tell them what's permissible without going on. And it's a shame that this house is positioned this way, but I don't see a hardship on it. Yeah, because of the house was mispositioned on the lot.
so what do you say, Mr. McGonigal, that if you figured out the measurement in that triangle, then deduct it off of this, and that's what he could build? Is that what you're saying?
No, you would take the
No.
16-inch encroachment in the rear and add that to the required 7.5-foot front yard setback, which would make it like an 8-foot setback, approximately. And then, so he could still have 12-foot of area to add on to in the front, I think.
But nothing on the side?
Up to about 8 foot on the side, he could also do an addition.
He could do an 8-foot addition on the side, and he could do an addition in the front, without a variance, is what
Correct.
you're saying?
With the help of staff reviewing the plan.
Yeah, come on up to the microphone, please.
So, yeah, we had plans to do like a 7'9" addition all the way to the property line, you know, maybe like 4 foot, and then it stepped back out. But that really defeats the purpose of a bedroom when it's only 7'9" plus 2x3 wall. You're really left with an unusable room in this front corner.
I think what they're recommending is pulling the house forward, moving out towards the front of the property line.
But as you move this addition forward, this encroachment becomes worse on this trying to stay flush with the house and stay flush with the existing patio. I mean, we would probably, homeowner would probably opt for cutting off the back edge of the house to where we're not encroaching anymore.
But, excuse me, but we don't know what the homeowner would opt for, so Mr. McGonigal had made a pretty good suggestion that perhaps you turn to staff to work with you on coming up with something.
Yeah, if you cut the back off, then you don't need a variance. Then you have the ability to encroach in the side. So you can encroach on one side or the other, you just can't do both.
That's what I would,
So,
that's what I'm proposing to do versus reducing this.
I mean, that's, yeah, because at the end of the day, like Ms. Lover said, this addition is a self-imposed hardship because you're adding onto the property. So it's self-imposed by the homeowner. So you might be more inclined to cut that back off and work with the staff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the hardship would be, and this patio is already encroaching, so we're not, we're just adding on to what's existing, because that's technically already a structure. I don't know what you.
But it's not enclosed.
Well, I think, well, I shouldn't make a suggestion, but Mr. McGonigal did give you a good idea of going and sitting down and talk with staff to see how it could be done, right?
I mean, do you recommend we postpone it, let him talk to staff, they can work it out?
That's a great call. If you want to, somebody's prepared to make that motion, then you can sit down with staff and figure out your options.
Yeah, so if we deny it, then you can't do anything for 6 months.
Yeah.
So if we postpone it and you have the ability to sit down, talk this out with Mr. Caldwell, Mr. Farmer, then if you want to withdraw it, you can withdraw it. If you want to bring it back up in the next meeting, you can bring it back up to the next meeting.
And I got a question.
But he's suggesting you don't, how do you feel about that postponement?
Just postpone it, let you have some conversations.
Will you work time?
Yeah, I'll definitely opt for that.
Okay,
For sure.
well, I'll do that then.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we postpone variance V 38-24 until our next scheduled meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bell. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a second, Mr. Thomas. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Thank you, sir. Any questions for the city?
No, I just,
Can we
we
make
through
a
with
motion?
that particular issue?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment and observation. that I've had. I made it once.
We want to get off the record?
Yes.
Okay. Can we
Okay.
get a motion to close the meeting?
All right, close the meeting now.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
I move that we close the meeting.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, my comment was, I'm always proud of the efforts that you have, and you do, and the rest of the board does, to try to accommodate and assist the people that come before us. It's not really our responsibility to do that. We approve or we deny. It's not our responsibility. But this board takes one step forward